Hello, and welcome to the Holistic Health Show with your host, that's me, Amy. Here, you'll learn how to adopt a proactive approach to your health through effective, natural, and sustainable techniques. Whether you are just starting out on your journey or consider yourself a health-conscious pro, this podcast is for you. Join me every week where you'll leave excited to take your next step. This podcast is for informative purposes only. Please remember to speak with your healthcare provider for your health needs. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Holistic Health Show. I'm really excited to let you know today that we have Carol Macrae on as a guest. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, how are you, Amy?
I'm good. It's really good to see you again.
Definitely.
Carol and I work together with Reiki Australia, and Carol is still the deputy chair. So we're an old hand at getting online and chatting together. So it's really exciting. It's been a while. So I'm really pleased to have you back.
Excellent.
Now, Carol is a clinical 5-path hypnotist, a Reiki master practitioner and teacher. Carol, I believe you're also a practitioner of other forms of energy healing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And you were a registered nurse before moving into the holistic health side of things.
And also been fitness centers for over 20 years as well.
Yeah. You will see me kind of looking down, I think, but I'm looking at you as I'm talking to you. Now, Carol, you're a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I have that right?
Yes, that's right.
My understanding is you've done a lot of work on yourself to, get through that, and you're now cancer-free?
Yeah, definitely. I had the first lot of breast cancer in 2005. Then 3 years later, I got bone cancer, and I healed that myself with Reiki self-hypnosis, meditation, visualization, vitamins, diet, that sort of stuff, even though oncology said it can't be done. So
Wow.
I know the power of working with the mind and the body together. And then I did get breast cancer again in 2014, and I had a double mastectomy and reconstruction using stomach fat to make new breasts. They cut from one side to the other, so it was like a tummy tuck sort of thing. They took sort of this much skin and everything to make the breasts and the muscle and blood supply, and the only painkillers I had was Panadol.
Wow. Wow. So there must have been a lot of Reiki and things involved, though, I'm sure, if you were on
Definitely.
Panadol. Yeah.
They came and said, we've got to give you morphine. I said, I think I'm on top of it, thanks.
Oh,
And,
wow. And how did they react to that?
They said, well, you can't be serious. You've just had this huge op. You've been cut from one side to another. And I said, look, on a scale of 0 to 10, it's a 3 if I move and a 1 if I don't. I'm prepared to stay still for the night. And I've just been doing some self-hypnosis and meditation and Reiki. And I'll be fine. So, yeah.
Wow. When I have someone on, I've started taking notes because some of these modalities are really new to me and I want to go back and review. So if you don't mind, I will take some notes. The topic today is hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
I guess, it's like I said, it's really new to me. It's not something I've ever even tried. So what can you tell us, what is it? Start there.
Okay. So hypnotherapy is absolutely amazing. I was doing Reiki first, and my dad died of bowel cancer, so that kind of got me onto the healing path. And then I started to see the connection between the mind and the body, and it just kept coming up for me. And then I ended up, when I was running the RSL Health and Fitness Centre for 9.5 years, after my husband and I had done it together, and we had another gym after that. But I ended up with chondromalacia patella, iliotibial band syndrome, inflamed fat pads, and patella tendonitis in my knees. It was, and I'm an old nurse, so it kind of rolled off. I was at a bookshop and a Reiki book fell out of the shelf, and I read the back and I thought, this is what I read about in the Celestine Prophecy book I read 5 years ago, and I've got to buy the book. And I read it from cover to cover, and 2 weeks later I went to Byron Bay and did Reiki level 1. The master said, Carol, you need to stay. Everybody else, you can go. And incidentally, I walked in and I said, I'm Carol, I'm from Dubbo. This lady said, my name's Sue and I'm from Byron. My mother was born in Dubbo. And the man said, my name's Mark and I'm from Sydney and my mother was born in Dubbo too.
Wow.
So, and there was another lady there too. So it was just lots of synchronicities. I did the training. I walked on the beach on the Wednesday. I went back on Thursday, Friday, did level 2. And then I flew home. My knees were still swollen, but I put my hands on my knees for 20 minutes. I went to bed. The next day when I got up, the swelling and pain was gone after 3 years of swollen knees. And I knew there was something mystical. I couldn't understand it. I kept thinking it'll work for everybody else. It won't work for me. But I remember going, oh my God, this is real. So that kind of put me right back on the healing path. And then when my dad died and I was looking at the mind-body connection too, I left the RSL Health and Fitness Centre. I got thrown out because I blew the whistle on someone dipping into the till who was drinking buddies with the new secretary manager. 18 months later, I was able to look at that and see it as a blessing because I was now on my path. And so with the hypnosis, I did so much study and I was getting really tired because we had the fitness centre, but I was also doing Reiki treatments. And I was having lots of people coming in with cancers, and sometimes one session and their cancer would disappear. One particular lady had cervical cancer. They said it was so bad she had to have a total hysterectomy in 2 weeks. She was 24 years of age. She'd never had children, they told her. 2 weeks later, she rang me and she said, it's gone. They can't find it. And even while I was doing the treatment, when I had my hand over her lower stomach, she said, it feels like my uterus is on fire.
So was this a Reiki treatment? Is that
Reiki treatment? Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just had lots of people with cancers that were just getting healed. One woman she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a football-sized mass in her stomach. And what I did was she was one of my yoga students because I taught yoga and Tai Chi for 10 years as well.
Wow.
And I rang her and said, I just heard what happened to you and why you haven't been in my classes for the last month. I'm coming to your house tomorrow and I'm going to do Reiki treatment on you every week and we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to get rid of an antibody. And she said, well, the doctors don't think it's going to be that easy. And I said, well, that's their opinion, but we don't have to agree with it. So on that first session, even though I hadn't done hypnosis training yet, I already got to the bottom that she was molested when she was 3. So there's always a root cause for every illness or disease. Yeah. So I did a treatment on her for 3 months, before or after, the day before or after she had her chemo. She did not lose her hair. She did not have a day of illness. And 3 months later, she was cancer-free.
Wow.
But it just brought up that mind-body connection. And so I went and did my training in Sydney and became a clinical hypnotherapist. And then I looked into, and it wasn't enough for me. It was mainly just direct suggestion. And I know that can work, but I also know it wears off after a period of time if you don't really do a good job on it and if you don't get to the bottom of it. And so then I went and did 5-path hypnosis. So hypnosis itself is just a natural state you're in and out of every day. There's nothing mystical about it. It's the state we live in for the first 7 years of our life because it's the imprint period and it means alpha theta brainwave pattern, but that's an optimum state of suggestibility. And so it means that all of us that have issues in our adult life basically have a seed of that in those first 7 years as a general rule. And it means if we can get to the cause of it, basically we can get rid of it. And I've just seen it over probably more than 10,000 clients I've seen over the last 20 years. So with 5-path, it's more of a spiritual type of hypnotherapy. And the first session's really 2 hours because I want to get to know that client. I want to know them inside and out. And they tell me stuff they've never told anybody else. I want to get that rapport so they know who I am, so they trust me, so they know what they see is what they get, and I'm going to do everything I can to get them better. Then the next session, we'll do direct suggestions. So that's also going to help them feel better straight away. They always leave feeling so much better.
Just so I can get some clarity, in a hypnosis session, because when I think hypnosis, I mean, I realize this is not what it is, but my only experience with it is what I've seen on TV, and there's like a TikTok and, what you kind of see in the movies. So what exactly would someone expect when they're sitting in front of you? And, you're not getting them to quack like a duck and walk like a chicken kind of thing. What is...
Those hypnotists on stage do us a real disservice. Okay. But what you'll find is if somebody goes to a hypnosis show at, the RSL Club or whatever, there might be 200 people in the audience and they're going to do suggestibility tests with all those people. They'll say, everybody stand up, I want you to do this. They might pick 20 of those people that are the most suggestible. So the people that follow along really easily, they'll bring them up on stage. Then they'll do some more suggestibility tests and they'll walk around and go, you can sit down, you can sit down. And they're weeding out the people that are not as willing to follow those instructions. And so the other thing is that if you go to a stage show and you get chosen to go up on stage, you know, it's a night out with your friends and it's a bit of fun and it's kind of like exciting if you get up there. So again, you're much more likely to follow along with those instructions. And so they will have, out of 200 people, they might have 10 of the best subjects on the planet sitting on that stage. And then they will then do some more easy things to put them straight into a state of trance. And if you've got a line of 10 people and one person goes down, the next person, and you're up here, you go, oh my God, that itself is a suggestion. I'm not going to be able to be out of this and not follow instructions. But with hypnosis, you can't actually be made to do anything you don't particularly want to. It's a state of suggestibility. But if somebody told you to go and murder your uncle, well, there's no way you're going to do it. So when they're in a chair in a clinical setting, it's a therapeutic setting. They're here because they want to make rapid change. They want to get something other than what they've been living for the last 50 years or whatever. Right. And so all we want to do is guide them into a nice state of focused attention. That's all it is. So if they're following instructions, they'll go into that state. And it can be as simple as, would you like to do a little test? I do this online as well. So
go on.
Bringing your hands out in front and bend those. Yeah. Now open those fingers and look through at the camera. Look at my forehead. And as you focus now, look at me. Excellent. And what I want to do now is I want you just to use your powerful imagination now to just simply imagine that there are magnets on each finger. And as you focus only on my face, just notice how those magnets start to get stronger and stronger, starting to draw together, pulling together, getting stronger and stronger. Now let's put an imaginary thread around those fingers and just pull that thread. And what you'll notice is those fingers start to pull together, drawing together, getting closer and closer with every step. And in a moment, they're going to touch. And when they touch, you can take a big breath and relax right down. And I'll let you just have your hands back, getting closer and closer and just excellent. So see,
I was actually fighting really hard just then.
There's just a state of focused concentration. That's all it is. Because
I just want to clarify. Sorry, I just want to clarify for everybody listening. We did not plan that. And I was actually trying really hard to not let my fingers touch. So, wow, okay.
Awesome. So it's like daydream, and it's the state you're in when you're driving down the highway and you miss your turn off. So that is an optimum state to put on some positive audiobooks and things that are motivational while you're driving, because it goes directly into that subconscious mind. When you're in that state, we can make rapid change. But again, if I was trying to get you to do something you didn't want to do it, you wouldn't get there. So it really is an interesting sort of concept, but it's been around since the 1700s in one form or another. And it's used now more and more as a clinical way to really help people make rapid change. And I used to work with 3 psychologists years ago, and I started getting their clients because, you know, they had them coming back for years. And I'm not about that. Hypnosis is fast because we're going to the root of the problem. So the conscious mind's 5 to 10%, and that's your rational, logical part. The subconscious mind is 90 to 95%, and that's the emotional part of your brain, but it's also where your habits and patterns live. So somebody might say, I want to quit smoking, and they're trying to do that with that 5 to 10%. Whereas the subconscious is where the habit lives. And as soon as they get stressed in the past, every time they got stressed, they lit a cigarette. So that's a neuro pattern. It's a pathway, neurological pathway in the brain that says, when I'm stressed, I'm going to smoke a cigarette. So that 5 to 10% is never going to win over that 90 to 95%. But if we can drop that person into that state of susceptibility where they're willing to follow those instructions, we can put that suggestion in that they're a non-smoker, they'll remain a non-smoker for the rest of their life, and they'll open their eyes and go, yep, I'm a non-smoker. That's easy. And in fact, I had a fellow years ago from Cobar. The Gold Peak mines in Cobar went smoke-free, and they sent all their workers to me. And I had one man, he was smoking 45 cigarettes a day. I think he said it was $380 a week on cigarettes, over $8,000 every year. And when he came back the next week, he said, I don't know what the hell you did to me last week. He said, it's been the best week I've ever had. Haven't had a cigarette, haven't thought about them. I went out with my mates drinking. They were all smoking and it just didn't bother me one little bit. I can't thank you enough. I just feel like a different person. I'm free, finally free.
So
And
this
so it,
is so I would imagine this man had a pack of cigarettes in his pocket,
he
after
did.
he had seen you. So
And I
it's
told him to
this.
throw him in the bin.
So it's this. He knows that he used to smoke. It's not that he forgot that he was a smoker. It's this suggestion
Exactly.
now that's living kind of within him that's telling him, no, you don't do this anymore. Or
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. And even before he left, so I will, if I've got somebody with quit smoking is probably the easiest thing I do. And I've seen thousands of people with that. But I will get them in hypnosis. I'll say, and if you've got any cigarettes in your pocket or in your bag, you might want to throw them in the bin before you leave here. If they're in the
No,
car,
don't
you
need
might
them
want to stop
anymore.
at because you don't
Yeah.
smoke. Yeah. And so they'll open their eyes and go, I've got some cigarettes here. Let's throw them away.
Yeah.
And that again, that is just me compounding that suggestion by getting them to agree
That
with
must
it.
be a powerful step, because I can
It's
imagine,
awesome. Yeah.
and when I would be growing up and would see a lot more people smoking, then they'd talk about quitting. It would be after this pack, or so they'd
Exactly.
kind of keep them and it would stay with them. And then all of a sudden they were buying another pack. So I guess that was a powerful step, throwing them
Definitely.
away. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's them giving themselves a suggestion, which is what we want. And in
Yeah.
fact, all hypnosis really is self-hypnosis, because they've got to want to do it anyway. And it's a
Yeah.
partnership. It's not me doing something to them. It's I play my part, they play their part, and together we get congruence with the conscious and subconscious mind. Because both those parts of the brain don't normally talk to each other. But when we can get to that state where we can shift, then we've got congruence. We've got every part of the mind moving them forward to the suggestion that they want for themselves. That's really what it's all about, making rapid change.
And is it, like this, is it one session, or are some people who maybe, because you mentioned with the shows, for example, they pick the easiest suggestible people, but then are there some people who are, I guess stubborn and it takes longer, or you have to work harder, or how does it?
So I don't usually ever do one session, because I want to make sure that we were successful. So quit smoking is the easiest, and it's like either 2 sessions or maybe 3. Everything else is about 3 sessions. Basically, when somebody's got an emotional that's driving a behavior, if somebody's distracting, and people use cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, work, probably you're in the work category, and probably so am I. We'll work all the time. Some people use cleaning, OCD. It's just massive anxiety, really, what it is. But when we use these distracting behaviors, it's just to not have to deal with the emotions. So you're feeling stressed. You go, what can I go and do? And I'll go and do this job. And it's just an underlying anxiety for most people. But if we don't deal with that cause, that initial emotion that's triggering the behavior, it'll lead to frustration. And if you keep going round and round in circles, it'll eventually lead to depression. But you can't get rid of depression until you find out what the primary emotion was. And age regression is the best tool for that. And so with 5-path hypnosis, it's first sessions easy, get to know them and do some easy direct suggestion towards what it is they've come in for. Second suggestion is we want to bring up the emotion that's driving the behavior and do some age regression and track it back and find out where it's come from and clear it. And so, for example, in one age regression session, I had a lady who came in with massive anxiety and low self-esteem. And we went back and back and back, and she got back to, I'm not born yet. And I said, okay, all right. How far along are you? And she said 7. I said 7 minutes, 7 hours, 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 what? And she said, well, I'm 7 months. I said, so what's going on in there, little one? And she said, Mum and Dad are fighting, and Dad just said, I don't want a girl, I want a boy.
Oh.
So she came out of hypnosis and she said, did I make that up? I said, I got no idea.
All I know is she's in that state. Sorry, I know I keep interrupting you. I'm just so curious. While she's in that state, is she aware of what she's saying? Is she's still her? She's not.
Yeah, you're not asleep. No, you're just in a really relaxed state. That's all it is. And when you're in that state, memories will float up. Anyway, so she said, did I make it up? I said, I've got no idea. But if your subconscious feels, it'll either make it up as a way to deal with the emotion.
Feels it. Either way that's bothering her.
Yeah. And I said, it'll either make it up, or I think maybe perhaps it could be real, but it doesn't really matter because we still got to deal with the emotion, and that's what we want to clear. So the next week she came back, she said, I can't believe it. I spoke to my mother about that and she said, how did I know about it? She was 7 months pregnant with me. And so I've seen that time and time again. I had a truck driver who went back to 5 weeks in the womb and said, Mum's trying to abort me. He was a 55-year-old man. And when he came back the following week, he said, I spoke to my 85-year-old mother and all she could do was cry and say, how could you know about that? You couldn't know.
Yeah.
So I believe that the subconscious is the soul, and that is there from the moment of conception. Actually, it's there from before, because sometimes people go back into past lives. So
they recognize this then with you.
Yep.
So now they're aware of something that has been bothering them. So it's particularly traumatic for them. And then, so what's the step to then dealing with it? Because is becoming aware of it enough? Or
no, we want to clear it. Yeah. So then we're going to take them before the episode. We're going to take them back to before they ever thought there was anything wrong with them, when they felt safe, when they felt, I'm good enough as I am, I'm perfect. And we want to bring that good feeling right through then. So we will bring the grown-up back, and we're doing inner child work here. The grown-up part of them will come back and be able to look at that little one and imagine holding them in their arms and say, you know what, you're good enough, you're fine, you didn't do anything wrong, there's not a thing wrong with you. And just tell them what they need to know, and then let them know I'm on your side and I'll be with you every step of the way. And then we'll go through those initial sensitizing event and subsequent sensitizing events and undo the problem. So we'll get them, give them some truth is really all we want to do. And we might say, you know, for that woman who was 7 months in the womb as a little fetus, what we then did was we took her to a time after we cleared that there was anything wrong with her. We took her to a time when her father told her he loved her. And so that was so powerful. And often I'll take them right through to their birth and I'll say, can you see Mum's face? And they'll go, yeah. And I'll say, how does she look? And they'll just say, happy. And I'll say, does that mother love you? And they'll go, yes. And it's just reinforcing that positive feeling of I'm good enough.
Yeah, that must be
then
very
we'll go
powerful.
right through. Yeah, and then I'll let them do some work on their own and just clear whatever else is there. So they come back with a whole new insight. So it's really reframing and realizing that might be somebody else's opinion. We don't have to agree with it. And the third session is generally forgiveness of others and anybody else that hurt them. And we do Gestalt therapy in hypnosis. So it has a much stronger effect than just doing it in a normal setting. And we would let them talk to that person that hurt them. Then we get them to swap places and step into the other person's shoes, basically, and understand where that person has come from. And maybe that happened to them. Maybe they didn't have the resources to be anything other than what they were. And then we'll do forgiveness of themselves for misunderstanding and for letting people walk all over them or becoming people pleasers or whatever that might be, because everybody's an individual. Everybody's got something unique. And so that's generally 3 sessions, and we might do a follow-up a month later. But if they've still got any symptoms after those initial 3 sessions, then we would do some parts mediation. So we'll break their psyche up into the different parts of them, and that'll be the old self part that thinks it's a good idea to keep smoking or eating the wrong foods or whatever that might be. It might be the fit and healthy self that says, you know what, I've been fit and healthy and it feels much better than being overweight or being smoking or whatever. We might bring the confident part of them that's overcome a lot of obstacles in their life. And what they get to understand is really, particularly with the age regression, that they survived everything. So if they can survive all the stuff that life's thrown, they're probably going to get through anything else that's in the future as well. So it's a lot of reframing. And yes, I have to work pretty hard sometimes. Sometimes I'd also find I'm mind mapping, I'm reading their minds while I'm in the chair because I've been doing it for so long. And because of the Reiki stuff, sometimes the clients will see the colors, you know, that often your clients will see when you're doing a Reiki treatment with the third eye opening. And our auras are merged when we're doing this kind of work. And sometimes I'll hear words come into my head and I'll say them and they'll go, how do you know I was thinking that? And then you said it. And that happens a fair bit of the time. So we're using a lot of intuition as well when we're doing this work. Not everybody does that. In fact, when I did my training all those years ago, there really weren't any other hypnotherapists in town. And even when I did my Reiki training, I had someone put an article in the paper saying I was doing the work of the devil because it came from the East. So that was way back. And so all the people in town, nearly every one of them, apart from about 2 people, there's a lot of people now doing hypnosis, but nearly every one of them are people that came to me for therapy and got better and went and did training.
Saw how
So
powerful it could be.
yeah. And look, I mentor a lot of people. If anybody's got issues, I'll have people ring me and say, I've got this client coming in with this problem. What do you think I should do? And I'll go, maybe you could do the rewind technique, or maybe you could do this with them. And I just think the more of us out there doing good work, the better it is for everybody. And it lifts up the profile of hypnosis. It lifts up the profile of Reiki too, because I've got over 800 students that have trained with me in Reiki. And I just think, how can I serve? How can I
And
serve?
you'll never run out of people to heal. It's never that there's going to be too many
Yes,
practitioners,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So very powerful modality, and we can get rapid change. We can get permanent change. And it's only if you really address what the cause is and just pull the trigger out. It's like a switchboard. You're just pulling all the switches out, and then they're home and hosed, and then they feel free to be themselves. And that's really what we want, authentic people living their best life.
So with it, I've heard a lot. You said it works really well for smoking, addressing anxieties, depression. I mean, almost sounds to me like it's pretty well rounded. Does it work for everything? Is there
Look, I'm going to say
anything
yes,
that really,
because I believe that, for pain, it works really well for pain. Even I had a man in here, was it yesterday or the day before, who my brother is I was going to say, well, he's a bit like Steve Irwin. He's a real rough nut. And this guy used to be a rodeo rider on horses, and he's a 60-year-old man. And he says, your brother told me to come and see you, that you might be able to help me. And I went, oh, radio, come on in, and we'll see what we can do. And I said, so Mark actually told you to come and see me. And he said, yeah, right. And I said, so what exactly does your sister do? And Mark said, well, I don't really know, but apparently she's pretty good at it.
But apparently it works.
Yeah. And
so we'll have to get him to listen to the podcast, and
it's amazing.
He can listen to what you do.
Yeah. And so what I did was I did that technique again, put the man into a state of trance, got him to put his hands down for a moment. And I did a thing called kinetic shift, which is another hypnosis sort of style, but it's really, to me, it's energy medicine on steroids. And it cost me $850 to do this 2-day workshop that I could have learned in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And so you pop them into a light trance, you get them to close their eyes, you get them to go into where is the problem in your body, maybe lower back. For this man, it was left hip, right hip. He was supposed to have 2 hip replacements, lower back, both knees. He'd had one knee reconstructed. He had a problem in his wrist. He had a problem with his left ankle. He had a problem with his neck, his lower back, and his middle back. And so what I got him to do is I was sitting down. I said, I'm just going to write. I'm going to take notes. Tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, what's this one? What's this one? What's this one? If it had a color, what would it be? So I got him to give me a color. First thing that popped into his head. And then I said, as I count from 1 to 3, you can open your eyes and just look at my forehead. And I said, now I'm going to actually pull that blocked energy out of your body. And he goes, rightio. And so the way I describe Reiki to people is that when we've got an emotional issue going on in our life, it'll cause a block in the flow of our energy field or our aura. If we're not able to deal with that emotional cause, it will move into manifest as illness or injury on the body. But I also did Touch for Health kinesiology, which is kind of combines Chinese medicine information and techniques. With Touch for Health, we talk about Chinese medicine. We talk about 14 meridians or rivers of qi throughout the body. And really, they break them up into 14 parts and name them according to the organs that they run through. But really, it's just one river of qi or energy that flows through the body. And what we know about energy is if we've got pain, it's because there's a block in that flow in that meridian. So there's a dam that builds up behind it. It's just congested energy. So we have these little chakras on our hands, and we can just simply just pull that blocked energy out like this without even touching them. And with this man, I just pulled it down through the hip like this. And I said, imagine now we're putting taps on your toes and we're just going to pull these little threads of energy out of the soles of your feet. And he goes, oh my God, I can feel that. I don't know what you're doing. Anyway, so we left here pain-free.
Wow.
And that's pretty amazing. And when I did the training with Connect Shift, it was with Hypnosis UK, but they did say if you've got other modalities, feel free to use them. And he didn't do it quite the same way I did, and I've sort of adapted it, but I know it's energy medicine and people can feel that. And I've done it online. One of my Reiki students was in Brisbane and she had a torn hamstring. She was a triathlete And I said, Kath, we might have a crack at this new modality that I've done. And she said, I haven't even got a computer. I've only got my phone. I said, I don't care. If I can do distance healing, I can do this on you as well. Let's have a try. Because I just don't think there's any limit to what we can do.
Yeah.
I know we can send our consciousness anywhere. And through knowing that we can do distance healing, we can send our intentions anywhere. So I put her into a light set of trance. She was sitting in a lounge room. She only had her little tiny phone. And I said, just put it down there. And I'm just going like this. And I said, I'm imagining where your legs are. And she said, I can feel that. Something's
wow.
traveling down my legs. 3 days later, she did a triathlon.
Wow.
I had another client in Ireland who had a torn rotator cuff. We did the same thing over the internet.
Yeah. I mean, distance healing is quite remarkable. We have a podcast, actually. There's a woman coming on next week to talk a lot about the different modalities she does via distance. Just getting into it, it's really remarkable the way it works and how it works. And, we don't understand all of it, but the results are there.
Definitely. I don't know whether you've heard of Jane McGrath. So any Australian will know about the McGraths because Glenn McGrath was an Australian cricketer, a champion. And his first wife,
I don't know
Jane,
anything about cricket.
So his first wife, Jane, had breast cancer and they formed the McGrath Foundation for Breast Cancer. And I met Jane at Glenn's auntie's funeral, my auntie Margie's funeral. And she said, do you do Reiki? And I said, yeah. And she said, do you think you could teach me something I can do so I can do some Reiki on myself? I said, sure, no worries. And we were having the cup of tea after the funeral in the church hall. And I said, look, come up the back. I'm going to teach you how to feel chi in your hands, this key, this ball of energy. And she could feel it. I went, oh, look, this is no good. They're going to think I'm a witch. You better come home with me.
Yeah.
So I took her home and I did a Reiki treatment on her and I did one attunement, which I wouldn't normally do, but I did it as a healing attunement so that it would just give her more flow and clear some of the blocked energy in her chakras and her auras, in her aura. And then a few days later, she rang me and she said, look, when I had a hot spot in my left hip, it was a dull ache, but since you did that treatment, I've had this stabbing pain in my right hip. I said, I should have warned you about that. This is called a healing crisis. And all it's doing is condensing that healing to a shorter period of time. So sometimes it can be more intense. So don't worry, I'll do some healing on you this afternoon when I get a break and it should be gone. So I did. I took my teddy bear outside at 4:30 that afternoon and I did the distance healing. And she rang me the next day and she said, I don't know what you did, but it's gone. And I said, before you say anything, what time did that pain go? And she said, 4:30. I said, that's the time I did the treatment. And she said, but now I've got a pain in my back. And I said, look, I kind of felt that. It felt like it was moving up and down the teddy bear's spine. And I said, I'll get to it tonight when I go to bed. And she said, well, I won't be here tomorrow. We're going to the Melbourne Cricket Ground, but I'll talk to you in a few days. So, of course, I did the treatment. And on the Wednesday, she rang me and she said, I woke up and it was just gone. And I didn't ring you because usually when we're at the cricket ground, my back aches all day after I've done that. It aches for a week, but it hasn't hurt.
Wow.
Went fantastic. So we had the psychic connection. So every time something would happen to Jane, I would just know and I'd ring her and say, what's happening? And she'd say, oh, I was going to ring you. This happened. Can you send me healing? And then I had this episode where my daughter and grandson had been living in New Zealand for a year and they came home and I had a teddy bear set up with crystals charged to continue to deliver unlimited Reiki treatments to Jane while ever the teddy bear remained within the crystal circle, the grid.
I might just let everyone know, I haven't done a distant healing episode yet. So anyone who is unfamiliar as to why Carol is carrying teddy bear around with her, as Reiki practitioners, if we're sending distance healing, we tend to use, a pillow or a teddy as the kind of makeshift person so that we can make sure we don't miss any steps and just have something there in our hands. So this is why she's carrying around a teddy bear.
Exactly. Yeah. So Cooper ran past the teddy, grabbed it by the left arm, reefed it off the bench. The crystals ran everywhere. It flew everywhere. I picked them up and I went, oh my God, I hope nothing bad's just happened to Jane.
Yeah.
I checked my watch. It was 2:30. I put them in in my bedroom behind the door on a bookshelf and came out and just picked it, dealt with everything else. Now, a few days later, Jane rang me and she said, oh, I had this terrible accident. I was putting my son James on the swing and he jumped up and he headbutted my shoulder and it's dislocated or something. Glenn's had the team physio working on my shoulder, but I can't even lift it. It's absolutely in agony. I said, did that happen on Saturday at 2:30? And she said, yes. How did you know?
That was her getting a big smack. Yeah.
I said, I think I did voodoo on you. And I said, look, stay on the phone. I'll do some healing on you right now. While she was on the phone, we cleared it. And she said, no, my right shoulder sore. And I said, that's you carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Let's clear that right now too. And we did. And unfortunately, when I got my first lot of breast cancer, I opted to have radiation so I could get a holiday, because we've got a daughter who's had drug and alcohol problems now for 26 years. We've raised a 20-year-old. We're now raising a 6-year-old. We have a 13-year-old on weekends as well.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of trauma going on at the time, but I was having the 3-year-old version of the 20-year-old now. Was looking after Cooper a fair bit of the time, a lot of stuff going on anyway. And so I had breast cancer, and I went away to I had radiation so I could get a holiday, and I would just drive home from Newcastle on a Friday, pick up Cooper, have him all weekend, drop him back on the Monday and go back to Newcastle and have the radiation.
So you'd travel to Newcastle for the radiation?
I did. We don't now, but did back then.
That's not particularly close, is it?
4.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal when you live out here.
You have to travel for when you're already dealing with cancer. And
look, I didn't see it as a problem. And I actually had a total hysterectomy 4 weeks before it so that I could get my ovaries removed so I could deal with, I decided to do that as part of my treatment rather than take their medication. So yeah, I enjoyed the driving because as I said, I used that time as my drive time, as my self-hypnosis time.
Yeah.
Well, I just had all positive stuff in the radio and the car on the way. Anyway, so I'd kind of lost this connection with Jane. And then when I rang her, she said, no, you've got enough stuff to deal with of your own. I didn't want to bother you, but I've been on Arimidex. No, I've been on tamoxifen. No, Arimidex she'd been on for 3 years, but her cancer had actually changed to a different type of cancer. So I then said to her, why are you on Arimidex if you had your ovaries out? And she said, no. I said, they've got you on the wrong medication. So she had these really world-class people looking after her, but they did have her on the wrong medication because she told me the next time she came back. Anyway, the cancer changed, and probably a little while later, she actually died. And so we're often trying to think, what is the highest good for all concerned? Because we think we're supposed to save people as Reiki people, and it's not our job. And that's the thing, we've always got to take the ego out of it. And that's probably one of the reasons I got breast cancer too, is because I was just so invested in saving people. And I was doing a technique where I thought I'd put my hands on their feet at the end, these cancer patients, and I'd go and imagine sucking the energy of the disease out of their body and blowing it away. Later, I read never do this technique because you can draw the energy of the disease into your body and you might get rid of it. So I've had a lot of lessons through all my illness. It's all been lessons. Nothing's meant to hurt us. Everything's meant to wake us up. And so with Jane, I look at what is the higher purpose, because I spoke to her and she said, look, to be honest with you, I can live with this cancer. I said, no, you can't live with this cancer. You've got to get that out of your head. You can live without it, but you can't live with it. You can't think that way. And she said, to be honest with you, I've been fighting this disease for 11 years and I'm tired and I've had enough.
Yeah.
And in that instant, I thought, she's given up. So any healing we do.
You see that, don't you? When someone makes a decision that they just can't fight it.
So with any healing, whether that's hypnosis, Reiki, kinesiology, anything else, it's a partnership between us, the client, and God or the universe. And if one of those things is missing, then that healing just doesn't take place. So the highest good from that came that when Jane died, in Australia, there was this public, huge weeping. The whole country came together, but it also lifted the profile of breast cancer. And it then made so many more people go and have breast screens. So there was something positive that came out of it.
Yeah.
And they say even when Princess Diana died, well, that was again huge. The whole world, joined together in solidarity there. But
I was very young, but I remember that.
Yeah. And so the higher purpose of her death was to open the heart chakra of England, apparently, because before that, the English people were really stoic. And after that, they were open. They were emotional. They were connected and more empathy. So we were always looking for that higher purpose.
It really it really just highlights that mind, body, spirit connection, doesn't it? It's really
Certainly
hard to
does.
ignore when you're witnessing and experiencing situations like that.
Definitely. And you can't separate them. They're all,
Yeah.
that's holistic health,
They're very
isn't it?
integrated, yeah. One
Yeah.
bounces off
Yeah.
the other, we'll say, or they're intertwined. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much
Yeah.
so.
Definitely.
Carol, I want to thank you very much for sharing your story and the story of your clients and filling me in on hypnotherapy and getting me to do something that I never thought anybody would be able to get me to do. So that was really interesting. Thank you
Excellent.
very much. Now, before we sign off, where can people either learn a little bit more about hypnotherapy or about you and what you do? Where can we go?
So I've got a website, carolmacrae.com. And look, I've actually got some healing pages there with free stuff. And there's a whole page for quit smoking, weight loss, and healing. And I develop those pages because I think the real work that happens is when got that client in my chair and we're doing work to clear their crap. And so the direct suggestion stuff, I've got a lot of stuff. People have jumped on there and quit smoking just using, I don't care. If it can help somebody, then that I can't get everybody into the chair. So the more people I can help, the better. And I developed the healing page because I've got so many clients that see me still for hypnosis with cancer. And I've got 4 people at the moment who are supposed to be terminal and 3 of them have no cancer in their bodies.
Wow.
And that's because we clear the crap and then we'll do a combination. We'll do whatever. But I won't just do Reiki anymore. I'll always do the work that gets to the heart of the problem on the mental, emotional level as well. Because there's 3 ways we can come at a healing. We can come at it from the energetic level. So we're clearing blocks, speeding up the healing process. And then that will also clear emotional blocks and physical blocks. We can come from it from the mental, emotional level. So we're clearing the emotional block first, which then clears the energy block, which then can clear physical blocks. And we can come from it from a purely physical level. But I think that is lacking. I think, when somebody just has a treatment, maybe chemo, or maybe they have antibiotics, I think unless we deal with the emotional stuff as well, the problem can come back again.
So it sounds like what somebody would be getting is a really intuitive session rather than, signing up for one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
It combines everything.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do, I'll pop on as well. And in the transcript or the show notes that I post online, I'll put some of those links up there.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and the Australian Hypnotherapist Association as well. I've been a member with them since 2005, but they are just go-getters. They're just amazing. And they've got training. They've got people that are qualified and train with them that you can jump into their directory, just as Reiki Australia does. And they've always got ongoing training. For me to stay registered, I've got to do, I think I did 6 or 7 workshops last year. Some on noetic healing, which is healing the body with the mind, all that sort of stuff. That's what I'm interested in. But you've got to have, once a month, you've got to have peer support meetings or supervision, whichever it is. But they're always ongoing. So they've got lots of things on their website as well, lots of information for members, but also for the general public and places you can go to do training if you're interested in doing hypnotherapy training as well.
Perfect. I'll link that one as well. So thank you again. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. And to everybody listening, make sure you go and you check out those links if you're interested in any of the many services that Carol offers or hypnotherapy. And as always, everyone, be well and stay holistic.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks for joining me on the Holistic Health Show and trusting me to guide you towards proactive healthcare. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, head to bodymindki.com. That's bodymindki.com and reach out if you'd like to connect. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and get ready to embark on an incredible journey toward holistic wellness. Until next time, be well and stay holistic.